Topic is young African American females, female professionals, and we have with us to talk about young African American female professionals, Doctors Smith and Dr. Hayes. And of course, Dr. Smith, let's pick up with you and to have you during this segment to give us some information about your area as a pediatrician and perhaps some of the issues that you have to face and some of the information that you can give to our audience, and then after which Dr. Hayes will give us some information in reference to her area, and we'll have a chance to sort of go back between the two of you. Let's start with you.
Okay. So I am a general pediatrician, and I see mostly children ages infants to 18 years, and I do have a few 21-year-olds in my clinic as well. I think one of the major areas that I see an issue, and I guess if I was Miss America, my platform would be obesity. I see a lot of children who are overweight in my clinic, and I think we don't realize what we're putting into our bodies. I think we all live such hectic lives, and we've kind of, in the hustle and bustle, forget to make dinner, and we see fast food there. So a lot of times we're making a lot of unhealthy food choices. For example, I always tell people that if you drink a soda a day, you'll gain 20 pounds in a year. Wow. That's just from one soda. So I try to get kids who are overweight or obese to just start with that one thing. If you start with just getting rid of sodas, that would just be helpful with just helping you shed a few pounds. And also, for example, I had a child this week that I saw in my clinic who's gained 35 pounds in 1 year. And it's just amazing to me that a child whose metabolism should be faster than mine has gained 35 pounds in 1 year. And then when you ask him about what do they eat, he slept through breakfast, so didn't have breakfast, so missed a meal, which is one of the worst things you can possibly do, is to skip a meal, because the next meal you'll overeat because you're super hungry. And he's also just completely not active. We're kind of living more sedentary lives now, and he plays 4 hours of video games a day.
And of course, that's the reason that he's gained some 35 pounds over a year. And Dr. Hayes, what about some of the things that you're concerned with in terms of your profession and dealing with young people?
Well, I have several concerns with my profession. One of the main concerns, and especially in the school settings, which is where I work, is that people don't understand what I do. They say, you know, my title is a speech language pathologist. People, for the most part, have no idea what I do, and that's a big issue, because I provide services in the area of speech, language, fluency, social communication, and a lot of children and adults have issues in these areas, and people don't know when to seek these or who to go to seek these services. Okay, so I think one thing is to know that in the area of speech, that's articulation. That's how we say different sounds. And when you speak, can you be understood? Can you say all the different letters? Or phonemes, as we say. And then language. Am I able to understand everything that I'm hearing? Am I able to communicate effectively to my peers, to my teacher if I'm in school? And then another area is fluency, and that is stuttering. And a lot of people have issues being able to communicate and without doing the blocking and the repetitions and things like that. So it's very vast. And another major area is social communication, which is in the area of autism, and which is very prevalent right now, and it just seems to be getting more and more prevalent, social communication and pragmatic issues.
Do you ever see any of the problems that she's talking about in your profession, and how do you react to those problems?
Definitely. I think we are seeing more autism. I don't think it's from vaccines. I think it's just we're doing a better job of picking up those children who could possibly have autism. And so I do see quite a few kids with autism and Asperger's, and I utilize speech therapists all the time. I refer very quickly, especially, for example, I had a 6-year-old who I really think probably can't hear, and I've referred her to get a hearing test, and also to have a speech therapist, because at 6 years old she should have more fluent speech and be able to just be more fluent, and definitely this child was lacking that.
Do you find that to be a common problem of young people who can't articulate primarily because they don't understand and whatever? Is that quite common in your area?
I do. I think I do see a lot of kids with speech issues. I was surprised in my area to see that so many kids with speech issues.
Now, where do you work in terms of, yes, you work in the metropolitan school system, I would imagine, but exactly what do you do out of your office? I mean, do you teach? Is it a combination of things, or do you advise? Or how do you perform your job within the context of the metropolitan school system?
Well, there are several different ways that I can deliver services. One way is to go into the classroom and work with the teacher, work with the special ed teachers, because it's very important to go into the classroom a lot of times, because if you're thinking about social disorders or social communication issues, you want them to be around their peers, and also you don't want to remove them from the class. So I would work then with the teachers and work on their goals there. Another way is to pull them out into my room, and then we target different speech sounds or target specific goals, and then hopefully want to generalize it back into the classroom, because the point of my services is to get them back into their areas, their classrooms, and be effective communicators.
Well, now, when you think in terms of what you do, what do you say to young women who might be not encouraged at this point in terms of trying to pursue an education? What would you say to those young people?
For all 5-year-olds and all kids, I always ask them what they want to be when they grow up, because I want them to dream. I think a lot of times the kids kind of growing up in this generation now have kind of stopped dreaming, and I want them to dream. And I always tell them to dream big, and I always say, you know, do something hard. Yes, medicine's hard. Yes, there are things out there that are difficult, but it's worth the challenge. And I always tell them to keep dreaming and to keep reaching.
And what about you? When you meet those young people who somehow seem not to be encouraged, what do you tell them?
A lot of times I have kids that say that they don't want to go to college, and I'll ask them, I say, well, what do you want to do? And they'll say, well, I want to be a football player, or I want to be a basketball player. I say, well, hey, football players go to college too. You have to be good at it. You have to go to college. And they're like, oh, really? Really? I have to go to college to be a football player? I have to go to college to be a basketball player? A lot of times, getting an education opens the doors to many areas, to not just to being a doctor or speech language pathologist, but to being even an athlete, or to being a beautician. They all need to go to school, and it's very important.
It's important not only to follow your example, but to be educated, period. Is that what we're saying? Very good.
Yes.
I also tell kids when they want to be athletes, I always say, just what if? I said, what if you get injured? What are you going to fall back on? I said, you can fall back on your education when you go to college. And I think they need to know, they need to have a backup plan just in case.
Very good, and it's very difficult to be a good athlete unless you go to college, because you know, you have to start somewhere, and that's generally where. And I think you've been involved in the band and et cetera, and so you know quite a bit about the athletic tradition in terms of how you get there. And of course, let's have this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this short break.